want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Free Like Me podcast. I am Clark Fredericks, your host. Guests come on, speak their truth, and leave free like me. Leave that shame behind, the burdens of their past behind, and just lighten their load for the rest of their life. I am grateful for each guest that comes on and for the valuable information they give you, the audience, to help yourself in your own problems in life. If you are interested in my coaching program, reach out to me either through my website or on social media. We can set up a consultation call. My book, Scarred, with Simon & Schuster Publishers, is up on Amazon for pre-orders. Comes out next summer. Head over there and get your copy now. And this week, I am blessed to have Allison as my guest. She's a cancer survivor. She's domestic violence survivor, and she's here to inspire you with her story. So let's get right to it, and I'll introduce Allison. Allison, my dear, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be on.
I just said to you before the cameras came on how fantastic you look going through cancer treatment right now.
Yeah,
and you shared with me how you're keeping your hair. I think the audience would be interested in that.
Yeah,
I've never heard of what you're doing.
So I do cold capping. Not all cancer hospitals have this. The first time around, I did not do it because they didn't have grants for it, and it's very expensive. And also with the condition I was first diagnosed with, my doctor didn't think I could handle it. But with the medication chemo I was last on, it was called Enhertu, causes hair loss, hair thinning, at least 40%. So what they do is like 30 minutes probably before chemo starts, they make you wear a hat and they freeze you. So it's like a big ice pack on your head, and it freezes your scalp below a certain temperature. And then you have to wear it during treatment. So usually when you get infusions, that could take 3 to 4 hours. And then you wear it 30 minutes after. So I'd say 4 or 5 hours, you're freezing your scalp, and it's kind of interesting because when you take it off, your ice is packed with icicles. And then you just have to be careful with how you wash it. Like you can't maybe wash your hair once a week, use baby shampoo. You can't really brush it that much. So yeah, they have a lot of upcoming technology with cancer.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because cancer, you use a lot of yourself. You lose a lot of yourself. And through that process, I really had to learn self-love and give myself grace, because we're so hard on ourselves a lot, so.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. No, yeah. I've never heard of that before until you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
I expected you to come on wearing a scarf or something. I didn't know how you were going to look.
Yeah.
You look great.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and then I do makeup a little bit on the side. So I have that talent too. So.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So take me back to where you grew up, and then just take me into your life, meeting your husband and starting a life. And, so tell me about young Allison.
So I grew up in Washington, New Jersey, which is very rural. I came from a really wonderful family. I still have a wonderful family. I'd say upper middle class. My dad did like IT tech director, also was vice president of Centenary College. My mom was in charge of medical receptionist at a walk-in doctor facility. 2 sisters. I was the oldest. But I will say with the area I grew up in, it was rural. It was very political. And a lot of my friends were high achievers, especially in sports. Like sports just came natural to them. Good grades came natural to them. In fact, my sister was like that as well too. And we were 22 months apart. For me, I always had a little bit of anxiety. I pretty much worried my life away. I was always worried about like getting in trouble in school. I had a hard time in school. It just took a while. I was one of those people that always had to like practice. My mom got tutors for me, and sports didn't come easy to me. I was typically the athlete that sat on the bench and got splinters in their behind, So I was a little bit overweight. So I always, but at the same time, I guess it was a blessing. I had friends that were high achievers. So it really pushed me. And I always felt like I had to prove myself. So I always felt like I wasn't good enough and I had to prove myself. And I worried a lot. I really worried that am I meeting people's expectations? Am I meeting my family's expectations? Am I going to be okay when I'm older? And just thinking I could just work harder. And so I did that. And then I wasn't really happy because I got bullied a bit in school, and I never not wanting to go.
Bullied for what? Bullied for your weight? Or?
Yeah, weight, and just girls at middle school, I was actually losing weight and really trying hard for field hockey. And that annoyed some of the girls, I guess. And, it's that middle school, high school age. And, there's crushes on boys and things like that and pettiness. So it was really getting to me, and it got to the point I didn't want to get up and go to school anymore. So my mom was like, why don't we try Catholic school? And the only reason I wanted to try it because it was like an excused absence. But I was also, I guess I will say I'm blessed where my dad and my parents were always very resilient, very resourceful. And I was like, you know what? You don't know unless you try. So I tried shadowing and actually met my best friend at Bethlehem Catholic, which we call Becca for short. And I loved it there. I don't know how to explain it. The energy, it's just everyone's encouraging. They're positive. There's not really too much politics. And I really thrived in that environment. So I ran track and did well with that, played field hockey, and then went to East Stroudsburg for health and PE, to be a health and PE teacher. I ran for their cross country and track team for a little bit for 2 years and worked at personal training. I also did figure bodybuilding competitions. I was actually in Oxygen magazine for a transformation of the month. And then got my master's at Lehigh for special ed. And then around that course, that's when I met my ex-husband. And even though I was bettering myself and making these accomplishments, I still kind of felt like I had to prove myself. I wasn't enough. A lot of my close friends had boyfriends and easily got boyfriends, like go from one relationship to the next, just seemed to make no effort. And I always struggled with that. And I always felt like maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm not thin enough. Maybe I'm not pretty enough. Maybe because I'm a bit shy, come off quirky or weird. And I really truly believe like how you feel about yourself, you will attract in your life. And unfortunately I attracted this horrible person and how they treated me into my life.
Where did you meet him?
I met him at a bar back in the day. It was
bar
called
setting?
Yeah, bar in Lehigh Valley. He was from New Jersey, moved to Pennsylvania. We were in our early 20s, 23, 24. I wasn't a drinker because I was competing for figure competition. So I was always dieting. He drank a lot. And out of my naiveness, because I was also a bit naive and gullible, from coming from a sheltered family as well too, I kind of, I guess, assumed he would grow out of it. And, sometimes people behave that way. But we were so young and I thought he would grow out of it, but the red flags were there and I totally ignored it. But there were also good times when he took me on dates. Like he introduced me to his parents. He would take me out to eat. He would ask me questions and really truly get to know me. Like we had a lot in common in terms of we both enjoyed the gym. We both enjoyed music, seeing places, like reading. So it wasn't like, and I think that's the misconception with domestic violence and red flags. You really got to listen to your intuition. I often feel like that's God talking to you, and I ignored it, and because the red flags were there. And sometimes too, you get caught in that cycle because domestic violence doesn't always happen every day. Like with my situation, it wasn't every day. It was once every 6 months, once every 3. It varied depending on his mental health, and you get caught up in that cycle.
What was he introduced you to his parents. What was his family dynamic like?
Very opposite, but also very similar. So both our parents, which I saw as a green flag, were married for like over 25 years. They had similar houses. They both worked. Both were hardworking people, same as my parents. What I found out as when we got engaged, that his family was a bit dysfunctional. His dad was having an affair and cheating on his mom with he was in his 50s, 60s, and the girlfriend was like in her 20s or 30s. His dad was very greedy and money focused, selfish, and just kind of had this mentality of, I struggled as a kid. My family didn't have much. So I worked hard for this money. This is my money. I'm going to do what I want with it. And doesn't take any accountability of how his actions impact his family or people close to him. And that really impacted my ex-husband a lot. And his mom was definitely like, when you see her, kind of a bit of a battered case. I never witnessed physical abuse, but I witnessed like the emotional, verbal abuse. And she kind of just like, she left at one point for a year. But she just kind of like took it, or like made excuses, or just brushed it under the rug. So that part was dysfunctional. The other part was weird, and I'll let your readers kind of, viewers digest this. My ex-husband was very well known in athletics, and the one sport he did, he went to states. He possibly had a college scholarship. He wasn't really good at academics, but with the sport, he was really good. He traveled to Russia and did this sport, and he met this coach. And at that time, his parents wanted to move from Jersey to Pennsylvania because it was after 9/11, and that's when, the recession hit, but also you could buy a house in Pennsylvania that was a lot bigger and the taxes were cheaper. So they didn't really need to move. They just moved for the bigger house. And he didn't want to move. He was like, this is going to affect my career as an athlete. How could you do this? It's my junior, senior year. And his parents were like, well, your sister can get a fresh start as a freshman year. So a coach, who he also considered was a family friend, who was single, not married, offered for him to live with him. And it was just supposed to be like a year or two, but it ended up being like 5 years. From what I was told.
That is just a recipe for disaster. First off, a coach shouldn't be a friend of the family, because that's another that's a red flag.
And as
right
a teacher, like, you have those boundaries. Like, you don't invite parents
over. There's got to be
a
separation.
No, like, I've never given my personal number.
As a victim, I see warning signs. Like, predators have to win over the family, the parents. And then they go after the victim. So here this coach is friends of the family and just like innocent, like, oh, let me take care of your son while you guys move so he can continue his career.
Yep. And he was very narcissistic. I don't like using that term because I feel like a lot of people overuse it, but he was typical classic narcissist, the coach. So long story short, and I was naive and gullible, but also this coach at the time had cancer. And how it worked was my ex-husband was his quote unquote like caretaker, family friend. And if he helped the coach out, he was the benefactor of his estate, which he was. And as like, if you care about someone, like as a family, you put someone in the will because you love them and you care about them and you want them in your will. His was very much like, if you don't do this, you don't get the house, you don't get my estate. And it wasn't typical things like I know as a cancer patient you ask for. It was like, you need to come over now to cut the dog's nails. 8:00 at night, I'm hungry, I want Chinese food, I'll give you $500 if you get me Chinese food. Like, really, like, ridiculous things. And he also was very up and down too. Like, he would kind of like shower my husband with like affection, like money, like praise. And if he didn't do what he wanted, or if he was in a mood, I remember when we moved, he was like, you can't say you completed 4 rounds of a game, but you really did 3. He was just very threatening. And the one thing I noticed about my husband, and I wish if I have any regrets, I wish I asked more about the details with this coach, is he was so tightly wrapped around his finger. Like, he could have an argument or a disagreement with his parents, state his feelings, put him in his place. The coach, nope, he walked on like eggshells, like wouldn't, like he was not always himself, if that makes sense. And he drank a lot.
And didn't you even live with the coach after you guys got married?
Yeah, I regret that. We lived for a year. We worked opposite shifts at the time, my ex-husband and I. So I never witnessed any form of like sexual abuse, but I've witnessed like the emotional, manipulative abuse. Just like I kind of mentioned before with the highs and lows. Like 1 minute, like, I love and care about you guys, like, or here's money, like, and then next minute, I need you to do this for me, X, Y, and Z. And the way my husband kind of grew up with his dad, they were very money hungry. And I tried to encourage him to be independent and not rely on this coach, not rely on his family, of like, hey, get your college degree, which he did. Like, you don't have to be in his will. Like, you could just say like, listen, I care about you. You're a family friend, but like, this is too much for me. Like, I'll help you when I can. but not have these expectations. And that caused a lot of fights and arguments because he would often say, like, if I don't get this house, or I'm going to resent you. So that caused a lot of problems in our marriage, along with his drinking and his moods. So.
And how far into the marriage did his drinking, create any type of violence? Like, how long after you were married did that start?
I'd say like 2 years after we were dating. So like the first time when we got an apartment together, when you first buy things for your apartment, groceries, the bill might be a little bit higher than normal because you're getting everything. He was really angry about that. We went kind of like yelling at me, nasty. Then we went out with friends. He had like 10 Long Islands, and I remember getting mad with him and be like, why are you buying 10 Long Islands? Why are you getting this drunk? You just yelled at me for buying groceries, and the grocery was so much money, and you're buying 10 Long Islands. And he's like, it's my money. I'll do what I want with it. And then we just kind of had an argument. We got home. I left to stay away from him, but the argument kind of continued. And then at one point he pushed me and punched me in the back of the head, and actually my ear split open. And that was like a shock, and I should have left. And I did leave at one point, but then I came back because it's a cycle. Like, and the cycle is like the incident happens, and usually the victim will leave or try to leave or feel a certain way. Then you get the loads of apology. I'm so sorry. And their excuses, I'm stressed out about money, or I'm upset about, and that time too, we found out his dad was having an affair. I found out my dad's having an affair. This is bothering me. And they have all these excuses, which is for their unnormal behavior. And then you accept the apology, and then kind of basically it comes back up like, well, you did this, or you stressed me out, or it's this. And then it continues, and it just continues in that cycle. And the only way to break that cycle is get out of it.
Looking back, you should have got out.
Oh yeah, 100%.
First occurrence of him punching you in the back of the head and splitting your ear open.
Yeah, I should have gotten out of that without the relationship. Yeah. And it wouldn't happen every day. It'd be like every 6 months, every 3 months. But I'd say like it could be with just the abuse continued with pushing. I got strangled a couple times. Also, what they do is slowly isolating. And I think sometimes with the movies or whatnot, you think isolating is like someone's holding you in captivity or something, and it's not that. Like, he would complain about family or certain friends. So you would kind of walk on eggshells, and I'd plan to see certain friends or family, like when it doesn't impact me and his schedule. So he'd slowly isolate you that way also, like, or they don't really care about you, or this person's this way, and like, they're not a good friend to you, or they're not a good family member to you. So that also occurred. And then also the financial abuse occurred too. Like, he wanted to control a lot of the finances. Like, if we did well financially, his credit cards got paid off, not mine. Or he would dictate kind of, for instance, like how much I could spend on groceries, or if I bought something like, I don't know, a winter coat, like he'd have an issue with it. But then he had an obsession. He definitely had addictive personality, not just with the drinking, but he would first collect all these watches, and then it was cigars, and then it's like baseball cards. And then, which kind of really upset me, it took me a while to heal from, because I'm Catholic, and he became Catholic, is he started becoming obsessive with the religion, where like spending like $100 on like rosary beads or certain Catholic icons. And he would use that as an excuse too. Like, oh, well, God forgives me now because I went to confession, or totally took advantage of the religion.
Is the anger and the violence go hand in hand with the drinking?
It does. So like the drinking varied. There were some times he'd have one or two and he was fine. There was other times where most of the incidents occurred, he would sneak it. So I don't know if it was in the garage. And sometimes I wonder if he took something else, because there was one like video or picture he was intoxicated I had that I showed to my attorney, and he was like, he definitely took something else more than drinking. But it would happen. It really varied. It depended upon what stressors were in his life. Like it could be every 6 months. It was sometimes every 3. There was times of periods where like 2 or 3 months were really hard. It was just constantly up and down.
And you said he would choke you at times. I mean, how do you like that's a little severe. How does he justify that the next day?
He would have excuses like, you stressed, like, put it on me, like, you stressed me out. And there's times like I think I could have handled better. Like when he was drinking, I would get upset. So I would argue like, why are you drinking again? You promised me you'd have two, not like five. Like, and that would create an argument. But then there's other times too, like just boom, he come out of nowhere drunk. I just remember one time sleeping and then he just came in my room and like strangled me.
You said they isolate you. It's not that, what you would think where the doors are padlocked and you're stuck inside, but they demean your family, demean your friends, say what assholes they are. I can't stand them. So then in your mind, you're like, why would I have Susie around if my husband hates her so? Or
Exactly.
Like
well, it also makes you sometimes feel like there's something wrong with you. Like I remember towards the end of our marriage, and before I got sick, I was working to get my supervisory certification to be a special ed director. I wanted to go into administration. And I had a really supportive boss. And she was like, you'd be doing the education a disservice if you didn't. You're really good at what you do. You really care about these families. So I wanted to pursue it. And the school paid for most of it, but I think I had to put a little bit down. And that he was like, no, he's like, you can't handle that. You can't do that. Like you get nervous every time you have IEP meetings. Like, and just kind of like degrade you. So just kind of like that type of abuse. And you don't see it or notice it until you're out of it. I'd like to say like domestic abuse, you can have someone that is so nice outside, which he appeared to most people, like, oh, he's a great wrestler. He takes care of his friend who has cancer. Or he was a great athlete. He's always kind. He's always helpful. He's a good worker. He shows up because he was a good worker. He'd show up to work all the time. But in domestic violence, it's an intimate relationship. So really nobody knows the full between, except for these two people that are in it.
So you even told me at one time he got 7 months sober. What precipitated that?
My daughters were getting older. My oldest was 4. The other one was 1. And they're noticing things. He wasn't handling stress as well either. So we had a birthday party for the both of them because their birthdays are around the same time frame. It was just family. And out of the blue, when guests are coming, he comes out of the garage and he's like drunk, like eyes are bloodshot, glassy, slurring his words, stumbling. He would get really obnoxious, like in your face, touchy. I was really upset about it. And his family noticed and they don't say anything. And in fact, like they're usually, okay, we got to go, bye. Because they used to say, like, they knew he had a drinking problem. And they used to say, when he drinks, the Diablo comes out, which means like devil in Spanish. And which was true. My mom did confront him and was like, you have a lot of people that love and care about you. But, the one person that, your wife really loves you. But she's my little girl and you're upsetting her. And he just kind of like looked right through you. He got to the point like almost like passing out, and my daughters noticed it, and he was annoying my older daughter, like tapping her on the shoulder, like kind of in her face, and he kind of scared her at one point. So when he sobered up, I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. I'm like, this is not healthy for my kids, because I wasn't raised this way. I was not raising my daughters with that. I'm like, I actually wanted to divorce then. I was like, I'm not doing this. I can't do this. I was like, you either need to get help, like go to AA, therapy, and no more drinking, or we're gone. Like the kids are gone. I'm gone. No. He didn't want to go to AA, but he was open to therapy. So we did that. We did marriage counseling. And he was sober for 7 months. And he just always had, again, the excuse, like his father and his parents' relationship. He would say like, how they moved his senior year or the stresses of work. There was always an excuse.
So he's sober for 7 months. Things are better. And then what happens after 7 months that comes to a screeching halt?
Work got more stressful and the coach health was declining. And he was just nasty. Like I remember just one part, like I made dinner and said, hey, there's leftover dinner in the fridge for you in Tupperware. Like help yourself, make a plate. What kind of wife doesn't put on a plate and heats it for me? Like just really nasty. He was not present. Like I remember him bathing the kids and he like walked away and left to like take a phone call. So it was really stressing us out. So one time we went to Wildwood with his family. And I was doing all the work. packing up, leaving, got all the kids changed. It's a 3-hour drive. It's tough with doing that with little kids. He's like, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna use the bathroom. I just need 10 minutes. My phone died. Can I take your phone? I'm like, okay. 10 minutes turns into 45 minutes. And I go to my ex-brother-in-law, what did he fall in or something? Like, what's taking so long? And he's like, no, he's on the phone. And I was just like infuriated. And I probably could have handled that situation better. But I was just angry because it's like, that's so disrespectful. Like, we're waiting for you. We have these little kids that just changed diapers. I packed everything. Like, you couldn't have called while we're driving. And that part frustrated me with him, because you would ask him to like make promises. Like, you promise you're not going to drink, or you promise if you do drink, you'll stick to 2 beers. Or, and a week he told me, promise, like, if you do the phone calls, can you like do it at a convenient time? Like when the kids are napping, or like where we're not transitioning into things, when there's some downtime. And he would make you these promises, but then like the next day, like snap of the finger, like the conversation never happened. So that verbal argument continued. And then we got home. I went grocery shopping. I forgot something from the grocery store, like cat food or something. And he got really upset, angry with me. We're still fighting. He goes to the store to get it. I guess he snuck alcohol or whatever else the case may be. And that led into the night of the incident.
Who was he on the phone with for 45 minutes? The coach in the bathroom before you left?
Yeah, the coach, I guess his brother, because he wasn't doing too well. He's in the hospital. His attorney, just like back and forth with things. Yeah. Because I guess the coach was apparently calling people, say, to get him out of the hospital or something like that. It wasn't like in a dire emergency, like he's dying right now or anything like that. It was just.
But the coach had this control over him.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Exert.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So you guys get home. He runs out to get what you forgot, gets bottles of alcohol, and then throughout the rest of the night is getting himself smashed.
Yeah, I didn't see, I guess he snuck it. And to this day, I still don't know where he got, like where he drank the alcohol, where the bottles were in the house, like after moving and everything. I have no idea to this day, but I could just tell when you have that look in that person, he was slurring his words. He reeked of alcohol. His eyes were bloodshot and glassy. Like, it was very obvious.
And then you're up in the bedroom and he comes up there later on.
Yeah. So I'm up in the bedroom. I put the girls to bed. I was really talking to my sister on the phone, and I was just like, I'm not really happy. I'm really frustrated. And, cause she was watching our dogs for us, and she was saying like, she noticed how nasty he talked to me. He comes up, he's like, I just need to talk to the coach. I'll be up like in 30 minutes, an hour instead of 30 minutes, an hour goes by, and he's definitely drunk, smells it, reeks it. He tries to make sexual advances on me. And I said, I don't want to be around you. Like, I don't like being around you when you're drinking. You promised me you weren't going to drink. And like, leave me alone. Because we had a guest room. I'm like, go into the guest room, leave me alone. And he kept continuing. And then that's when the incident happened. If I keep it, I guess, short, is that basically he first strangled me. And he was like, you either let me F you or you die. I tried to roll out of that and reach for my phone. He then punched me in the back of the head several times. And then he tried to kind of like twist my neck, like he was like snap or twist my neck. And then he rectally sexually assaulted me. And I just remember time going so slow, but yet so fast. And I just remember saying like, please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. We have 2 beautiful daughters. Like, please don't kill me. And I just remember like praying, especially Archangel Michael, like, please save me. Like, my kids need me. And then the action was completed. I went to the bathroom, and I'm just being like, I'm so done. I can't believe you did that to me. I'm so done. And just kind of like in a state of shock, like you freeze, if that makes sense. Like,
you're saying that out loud. I'm so done.
Yeah, I said, I'm so done. But during the sexual assault, I kind of like froze, because I thought like if I moved, I'm dead. Like you just freeze.
Were you screaming at all, crying, or to alert, like probably, with the kids in the house, or you just froze? And
the kids were in their bedroom, and they had like it's called like the hatch machine. And we always put the sound machine on really high for them because they're like, because of, you do that with babies and things like that for sleeping and noise control. But during the strangulation piece, yes. And when he tried to like snap my neck, and then just after that, I just froze. I like couldn't move.
So you're in the bathroom saying, I'm so done, I'm so done. And what's his response?
He was still like in a trance. It was really weird. It was weird. It was like he was not my husband. It was like his eyes were black, glassy, in a total trance, like someone took over. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like, it was like not him.
So many guests come on this show and say the same thing. And the same thing happened with my predator abuser is his eyes would change, his face would change. And week after week, guests come on and say the same exact thing, like when their father would go into the mode of abusing them, his eyes would dilate and his face would change. And now you're saying the same thing happened with your husband.
Yeah, it was like a totally different person. It's like he was possessed or something. It's the only way I know how to describe it. It's scary too, because there's nothing that really gets them out of that. So then I saw him going, we had guns and a lockbox, and the keys to the lockbox were in his like sock drawer on a tall dresser. And he goes in for the keys. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, now that like I raped you, I'm going to kill us all. And threatened to kill me, him, my daughters. And then I just like bolted and grabbed the lockbox and like just held it like tight. And we kind of pretty much were arguing, bickering. He pushed and shoved me, tried to get it, but I really held on to it tight. And during that time, he said, Allison, what did you expect was going to happen? I was molested. Like, I tried my best to keep it together. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you never told me this. Like, what I mean? He mentioned like years ago that like a friend of like, not a friend, a family member, like touched him inappropriately, but not rape or anything. He never said like he was molested. Like, and then I just remember like, what are you talking about? Like, who molested you? And he said the coach did. And then I found out actually recently, that at a Catholic high school in New Jersey, even though the coach passed away, these victims came out saying he sexually was inappropriate or touched them inappropriately, and they're doing an investigation. The coach passed away after the incident, but then I tried to grab my phone, call for help. I got through, and I just remember saying like, help me. And then he grabbed the phone from me because I was trying to sneak help. I didn't think that call went through. And by the grace of God, it went through, and there was a big bang at the door, and it was the police. And then I remember that moment.
How quickly did they arrive?
I can't really tell you, honestly, because it's such a blur. I really can't tell you.
Are you guys fighting over the gun box?
Yeah. And then I remember like thinking like, okay, they're here. I need help. Do I go down these stairs? But then my kids could be at risk and he could hurt them. And then also thinking like, I go down these stairs. If I tell him what happened, it's over with. This marriage is over. Or do I tell him like nothing happened and you continue that cycle? And because I always say you're one decision away from changing your life. And most of the time we know what we need to do. You just have to have the courage and take the steps, the action to do it. And I just bolted down those stairs, bawling to the police, saying like, I need your help. And that police was a saving grace. He could not have done. He was very calm. I didn't think he was biased. He was very informative and handled everything really. I was really grateful.
Did they run up the stairs? Like, did you say he has a gun or anything?
So he asked me, he's like, what happened? Like, my husband drank too much. And I said, I don't know if this is a thing, but if marital rape is a thing, but he raped me. And I said, I was like more panicked. Like, they take my kids from me. And I was like, I'm a good mom. Like I need help. I need help. I was in hysterics. Based upon the body cameras, you could see my neck was all red. There was bruises and things. So when he opens the door and I'm telling him, so I tell him like the brief side of the story, kind of more in a panic. He goes, okay, let's go in and see what's going on. Cause he knew he had a gun. So he's like, we're going to go in. The lights are all dark in the downstairs and he's sitting right by the window, my ex-husband, trying to hear, I guess, what I'm telling the police or saying to the police. And then the police is like, is everything okay? He's like, yeah, it's okay. Everything's great. Like, we're just had a verbal argument. Everything's fine. And he goes, are you sure about that? And then he goes, yeah. And then he goes, okay, we'll go upstairs, check on your kids, see if they're okay, and call your dad. And I went to call my dad. I couldn't. He had my phone. And I'm like, I can't. He took my phone from me. And my ex is like, no, he didn't. And I'm like, yeah, you took my phone. And then he goes, do you have your phone on her? The police goes, do you have your phone? And he reaches out of his pocket, hands over the phone. Then I go upstairs, I make the call, checking on my kids. I guess that's when he asked him, like, anything happened? Did you touch her or anything like that? No, it was just, a heated verbal argument. Like, everything's fine. He's like, okay, well, we're arresting you for domestic violence. Handcuffed him, everything, no shoes on. My ex-husband is like yelling at me, like, can we talk about this, please? Like, we need to talk about this. Like, what's going on? And yeah, and then they took him to the station. My dad came. The police officer took pictures of me, had me fill out an incident report. He gave me a list of resources. Like, these are the things you need to do. Like, the first thing is, like, you're to go to the hospital and get a rape kit assessment with the SANE nurse, which stands for sexual abuse nurse evaluation. And he's like, you gotta take the ambulance. And then remember my dad saying, well, can I just drive her? It's late at night. Cause it was like 1 a.m. He's like, it's late at night. Like, can she just go in the morning, or can we drive her? I don't want her. My dad didn't want me to get an ambulance bill. He goes, no, like, crimes victim counsel will cover it. He's like, she has to take the ambulance, because if you don't, let's say if you go the next morning or you go in somebody's car, you're technically tampering with the evidence. So it was really crucial you follow, I just surrendered. I just followed that police, like, whatever he told me to do, I did. I was like, I'm surrendering this to you. So I went to the hospital, and the one doctor said, are you sure you want to go through with this? He goes, it's an extensive assessment. It's very difficult to prove marital rape. So when you go in that, and I was longer in there than I should have been, because I was so upset I needed some breaks, but they also didn't have a SANE nurse immediately. So I got there like 1-ish in the morning, 2-ish in the morning, and I didn't get out until like lunchtime the next day. And then what they kind of do is, like, they'll swipe under your fingernails to see if, like, there's like the things they pick up on there, you'd be surprised. Because sometimes you look at yourself and you're like, well, it's just a bump or it's a light bruise. And sometimes bruises don't show up till like 48 hours afterwards. But their cameras pick up everything. So they swipe under your nails to see if there's scratches. They take pictures of your skins where you got hit or choked. So even to, like, my eye or someone else's eye, you couldn't see it, but with the cameras, they could see that I had petechiae, which is like blood vessels breaking from being strangled. And then you get swabbed where, you're sexually assaulted. And yeah, so they did all that. And then the DNA, all of it goes to the state police, and the DNA came out positive. So I guess let me go into this, just some nuggets for some of your viewers, is the first part, which, like, you're only one decision away from changing your life. The second piece is, I'm a big believer, the key to happiness is keeping the promises you make to yourself. And I promised myself after his birthday, like, if he does this, like, I owe this to my kids, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. So he drank. So I'm like, I'm sticking to my promise. This isn't going to change. Did what I had to do. And then the next piece, what I had to really do, which was hard, is kind of like, if you think of a racehorse, if you see the racehorse, how they have those eyes on the blinders on the side of their eyes, and they have that to stop themselves from being distracted from the other horses. I had to become that racehorse, and whatever resource they gave me, because knowledge is power, I just did. So he told me, call Crimes Victims Counsel. I called Crime Victims Counsel. They can assist you going to court. They can walk you through the PFA process. They can give you therapy. They can give you money if there's any damages, like, done to your house or something. They can give you moving fees. They can give child therapy. So I contacted them. They were amazing and really helped me and informative. They took me to the PFA office. I filed a PFA. Then I had to go to, what I did is I took money out of our marital bank account, and they tried to use this against me, but I took most of it out. He took my daughter's college fund, which was awful. So I regret I should have just took all of it, but I took majority, more than half of it, because I had to pay for daycare bills, the house, and everything, because he wouldn't be allowed to come to our house, which the PFA is in place. So I did that. I filed to domestics for child support. And then I had to do researches for like attorneys, what attorneys to use. And at the time, his attorney called me, which he really shouldn't have, saying, my client, he needs his stuff for work. They had an arranged where a local police officer would escort him and get the things he needed out of his house. Did that because would you be willing to do a supervised visit? Like, my client is saying, please don't end this. Please don't throw everything away. You have a beautiful home, a beautiful family. Please don't throw everything away. I was kind of scared. I just told him, like, you know what? I'm going to think about it. I didn't want to tell him I'm filing for divorce because I know how spiteful he'd be and like make things more difficult. So I kind of held back on that for a little bit. So then I started doing consults, and the thing that kind of also really stuck with me, because I did want to do a supervised visit. You want closure. And to this day, I've never really had closure with him. I haven't spoke to him one-on-one since that incident, which was 3.5 years ago. I talked to two or three attorneys. They were female, actually, because I preferred a female. And they actually told me I should drop the charges because I'm not going to get child support. Marital rape is extremely hard to prove, and I'd be better off dropping the charges. And even the first district attorney I worked with, and she was female, said, are you sure you want to go through with this? She's like, we could just do strangulation. Or are you sure you want to do rape? Because if you do rape, she's like, that's a 2 to 3 year long process. You're going to get a lot of continuances. There's a lot of evidence, and marital rape is extremely hard to prove. But I just felt in my heart, like, if I don't go through this, he's going to get custody of my kids. And then what happens? How am I protecting them? I can't protect them. And he's going to do this to somebody else. So as hard as it was, I went through with it. And then I met with one attorney who was a male. And I remember him saying, I said, like, could I do the supervised visit, or how's this go? Because I just want to have like an easy divorce. I thought he would take some accountability and the divorce would be, which totally never happened. And I remember the attorney just saying to me, he goes, Allison, why would you want to talk to your attempted murder rapist ex-husband? And that really like hit me, like, and just like, Allison, I can't believe you stuck and dealt with these behaviors for so long. Like, the things he's done to you are serious, like really serious. But I think too, just being like the person I am, being a special education teacher, you have empathy when they blame things like it's stress or it's my child, you feel for the person. And you fall for their excuses, hoping they're going to change, but they're not going to change.
I find it a little shocking. Like, all the women were telling you not to go forward with it. You would think the women would band together and be like,
no,
let's get them. No. And, the males would be like, oh, go easy, if you made a mistake. But it was the other way around,
Oh, totally way around. That has shocked me a lot with this journey.
You stuck to your guns and allowed them to charge him with rape. And what happened when he went to court?
Well, there's several things. If I'm okay to let the viewers know, there's a lot of legal abuse in the process, and that's why a lot of women stay in it. And you just kind of have to realize, like, hey, a snake is a snake. A snake always bites, and they're going to say horrible things about you. So that whole process was hard. There's a lot of continuances. So one time we had court, he didn't show up. They had a warrant out for his arrest. He got arrested. Then he had a judge recused. He wouldn't let me sell my house because I couldn't afford it on my own, and had to file an emergency petition for that. He was subpoenaing neighbors and close friends to be a character witness. And some of them came to me like, hey, listen, like, we love you, Allison. We love your kids, but like, we don't want to be part of this. But if you need help, we're here to help you. But we don't want to be, I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to be part of this? Like, what are you talking about? I'm not asking you to be part of this. And like, well, we just got subpoenaed. And then I went to my attorney about it. And then his attorney accused me of witness tampering. Everything was just like a fight and like manipulation and threats. Like, you feel like you're in a tennis match. Like, where's the ball going to go? Waking up every day like that. So then the court happened. Well, two pieces to that. So finally sold the house. And I couldn't like recover as quick as I could. I thought maybe it was the stress of everything. I felt a lump in my breast, and I got diagnosed with breast cancer. It was metastatic. And this is a year after the incident. It spread everywhere, my lungs, bones, liver. They did radiation And I got diagnosed July, radiation August. When I had radiation, it broke up a tumor in my hip and I couldn't walk. I had to get a rod in my femur. And then I started chemo. During that surgery process, they had the third district attorney, because the DAs change a lot often. And he called me like, I'm the new district attorney on the case. Just want to introduce myself. I wanted to ask you a couple questions. Like, is this a good time or when can you meet? And I said, listen, I'm in the hospital. Like, I was just diagnosed with breast cancer. I'm getting surgery. I said, I do not want my ex-husband knowing about this, because I was scared they could say, like, my attorney told me there's a possibility he could take my kids. He doesn't know how a judge would rule on that if I'm this sick. So he said, well, we need your testimony. Like, he's like, is this going to be like, we need your like for this case to go through, we need you to testify. And he's like, are you going to be okay? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, cause my doctor told me, she's like, listen, she's like, you're really sick. Whatever affairs you have, you need to get them in order. You could have possibly 2 years left to live, average 5'10". There's some women that do really well that are, 15 years, but she's like, you're not doing really good. Like, whatever, you need to get everything in order. So my doctor wrote a note, and the district attorney filed a motion to, I guess, speed up the process of the trial, because sometimes when you have trial, especially for rape, and they continue it a lot. There's a lot of continuances, cancellations, motions filed. So I'm in the midst of chemo, losing my hair. You're all puffy from steroids, not yourself. You lose a lot of yourself, hair's falling out, eyebrows, eyelashes. You feel horrible, like you were hit by a bus with flu. And I had to do the whole preparation where you meet with the district attorney, police, tell them your side of the story. Because how it is with court too is our justice system's kind of really meant to protect defenders. You're non-guilty until proven guilty. So the defense team has the district attorney's evidence and their evidence. The district attorney just has their evidence, my evidence. The defense team doesn't have to show their evidence. So that makes it tricky. So the team tried to pin it as I was out for this coach. I wanted the coach's inheritance. I was jealous of the coach, and I was a cold-hearted person, and I fabricated this whole story. So they're saying all these horrible things about you, which is, a lot of people's worst nightmare, is public humiliation. And you go to court, and then you also have to say the history of your whole sex life. Like, what things have you done as a couple? What was your relationship like? What was your life like intimacy wise? And explain all that in front of a jury of 15 people. And thankfully, the jury found him guilty.
What was he sentenced to? You said he got a max sentence?
He got a max sentence. They do it in months, but if you average the months, between 7 and 14 years. From what I've been told is that with sexual violent predators, they mostly usually get more towards the max and not the minimum. He'll also get 3 years probation, but they feel like, kind of, you said in your podcast before, that a lot of sexual violent predators, can't be rehabilitated. They don't feel the minimum sentence really fixes them or makes an improvement. They did offer him a plea deal instead of going to court, to admit what he did. He'd be forever labeled a violent sexual predator, but he would have 4 to 6 years because he was a first-time offender. And he was like, well, I'll only admit what I did if you give me a 1 to 2 year sentence and take out the sexual violent predator. And the DA is like, no. Yeah. I also went through a lot of, too, like what caught him, which was hard. I was really grateful, which proved it was a couple things is I just surrendered and did everything the police told me to do. I just did. I just just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then kind of like that racehorse. It's very hard to do, but not worry what the other side is going to do, what they're going to say, because they are going to make you look crazy. They are going to make up things. They're pulling straws, because they're fighting for their life. And you just have to keep moving forward, surrender, always do the right thing, always tell the truth, use the resources, because knowledge is power. The first part was he kind of waived his Miranda rights when they had him at the police station. And the police officer was like not biased at all. He's like, hey, like, can you tell me your side of the story? He's like, well, I love my family. We just had a verbal altercation. It was just a bad verbal fight, but I love my family. I would never hurt them. And he goes, are you sure about that? He's like, did you touch her? He's like, no. Did you have sex with her? No. Like, and then he goes, are you sure about that? And he goes, yes. And then he goes, okay, well, she's at the hospital right now getting a rape kit done. And his face went like this. And then it turned white. And he's like, do I get a phone call? When he had the phone call with his mom, I think that is really the piece that criminated him. I think it could have been difficult to prove if it wasn't for that piece. The phone calls to jail are recorded, and he's crying like, no, mom, you gotta get me out of here, gotta get me out of here. And she's kind of like interrogating, asking like, well, did you drink? Did you hit her? And his response, I mean, obviously his story was not the true story. Like, I couldn't attack or fight back or anything. But it was like, I did choke her, but she choked me too. I did hit her, but she hit me too. And then his excuse was, we were having a fight. I didn't want him to leave. We started being sexually intimate. And then in the middle of the intimacy, I said, stop. And he didn't stop, which didn't happen at all. And his mom goes, well, why didn't you stop? And he goes, I don't know. And that, and then the other piece of it too, which, was hurtful, was his mom was, there's no like, is Allison okay? Or the girl's okay? It was like, well, when you get paid, do you get paid into a joint account? Or do you have your own accounts? And she goes, well, we're going to have to change that. When you come out, I'm getting you out as fast as I can. We're going to take the money. And we're like, that was like on their first priority. So kind of really show too, like how much his family has such an over sense of entitlement. They expected him to be released right away when she paid his bond, instead of following the procedures because they could hold you to midnight. So I think that had a lot to do with that recording as well. So
he got found guilty in 2022. So he's been in there for 2-3 years going on now.
November 2022, he was found guilty. Usually they arrest you right away. For him, they let him out actually for 90 days. And then March 2023, he was sentenced to a state prison.
Well, I'm proud of you for sticking to your guns and not wavering and, seeing it through all the way. I'm sure there was humiliating parts and all throughout. If you had, advice for women in a similar situation, what would you tell them? What, is there things you wish you had done differently? Things you didn't do?
First thing is just don't avoid the red flags. If your intuition telling you something's not right with that person, it's not right. Just follow it. No is a complete sentence. I think sometimes people question marital rape. And, sometimes too, like in our relationship, he would make comments like if I didn't want to do something or if I wasn't in the mood, he'd say rude things. And, no is a complete sentence. No means no. I learned a lot about self-love, like finding something special about yourself, not being so hard, giving yourself grace, especially through cancer, losing the hair. You can't control life just worrying everything. But one thing I have to say is like, I'm really proud of myself throughout this journey, throughout cancer, throughout being a victim of domestic violence. I could lay in bed, cry, say, woe is me, but I'm going to keep shining my light. Like, I still sometimes have post-traumatic stress, especially because I have to see my ex-mother-in-law. She filed a stipulation to get visitation with my kids. And that's very hard, especially when someone that's never going to be sorry views me as I put him in jail instead of taking accountability. I'm not going to let him, her, or cancer dim my light. I'm not going to let him stop living. I'm not going to let them stop me laughing or finding joy. Happiness, I think sometimes people look for happiness, like you have to have the right house, the career, look a certain way. And happiness is really moments, finding those moments. So
you got a new lease on life. You got a second chance to, have a better second half of the life like me. I'm looking, just starting to live for the second half of my life now and excited about it. And I hope you're excited too.
Yeah, for sure. I pray like that this just helps people.
Yeah, empower women, you don't have to be the victim. You know, it's going to be tough. You got to stand up for yourself. But the end result will work out for the best.
Yeah, and don't worry so much about like what people think, what they're gonna do. Like, as long as you do the right thing, you're a good person. God always has your back. Like, I have to say, through this journey too, like God has sent me a lot of angels, and they're in the form of people. I can't tell you how many people have helped me, whether financially, whether calling me, praying me, helping my children, just through cancer, through this whole journey. The truth always comes out, and like as long as you're doing the right thing, just take the necessary action steps. It always works out, you know. And don't lose that love for life.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, I've had so many people help me too. Once I spoke out, and they just want to do anything they can to help you. You know, and that's what people have to realize. They're not alone. They're not alone, and people will come to assist them. So.
Yeah.
Thanks, Allison. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
sharing your story, and
Thank you.
let's go for the second half of your life.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I appreciate it. And there's links, like I said, that if anyone feels that they're possibly in an abusive situation, even if you're not looking for divorce right away, there's hotlines you can call and they'll talk to you and give you solutions, give you some therapy input. There's a lot of great things out there. Knowledge is power, so use the resources.
Yeah, we'll have links up for New Jersey and Pennsylvania for places people can call for help. Thank you, dear. Wow, people, domestic violence, it's frightening, it's scary, but you don't have to just continue to suffer with it. You can overcome it. You know, it's going to be tough. You might have to go through some tough things like Allison did, but she stuck to her guns and put her abuser behind bars and has a new lease on life. So we're going to have the resources she's provided me for New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And then each state has similar resources, you know, so reach out if you're in a similar situation and get help. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. Peace.